Picture someone well-dressed, polite, the kind of person who walks into a room and makes everyone feel seen, understood, special. They know how to listen. They know when to smile. They know exactly what to say to make you lower your guard. But here is what you don't know on Teen Seed. There is nothing. No guilt, no remorse, no empathy. While you smile back at them, they are studying you like a chessboard, calculating, planning, deciding whether you are useful. This is not a movie villain. This is closer to you than you think. Studies estimate that between 1% and 4% of the population displays significant psychopathic traits. In a city of 1 million people, that could mean up to 40,000 of them. Some are in positions of power, COLs. Some are your coworkers. Today, you are going to step inside the mind of a psychopath. We will explore what neuroscience has discovered about their brains, how they perceive the world, why they feel pleasure where you feel horror, and what that tells us about the very limits of human consciousness. Stay until the end. What you are about to discover will change the way you see the people around you. Before anything else, let's destroy a myth. Psychopath does not mean murderer. Psychopathy is a personality disorder, defined by a specific cluster of traits: absence of empathy, calculated manipulation, superficial charm, lack of remorse, and inability to form genuine emotional bonds. Psychiatrist Hare was one of the first to document this profile scientifically back in the 1940s. He described the psychopath as someone with above-average intelligence, no delusions, a perfectly normal outward appearance, and, beneath it all, a profound emotional poverty that no mask can fully conceal. Robert Hare, who created the most used psychopathy assessment tool, put it this way: the psychopath knows the words of the song, but not the music. They have learned to imitate emotions. They observed how you react to suffering. They learned when to cry, when to lug, when to say, "I'm sorry." But it is all performance. Beneath the mask, there is a structural void, and that void has a biological explanation. Neuroscience. This is where things get disturbing. The human brain has a region called the amygdala. It processes fear, suffering, and empathy. When you see someone crying, your amygdala fires. You feel what the other person feels. It is automatic, involuntary. In the brain of a psychopath, that region shows significantly reduced activity. Neuroimaging studies show that when psychopaths are shown images of pain, suffering, and fear, the brain areas that should activate simply don't. The emotional response that is automatic for you is essentially absent for them. But it doesn't stop there. The prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for impulse control, moral planning, and ethical decision-making, also shows atypical functioning. In functional studies, psychopaths recruit additional brain areas to perform tasks that should be straightforward. It is as if they require conscious effort to simulate what you do automatically. And then there is an element that changes everything. Dopamine. The dopamine system in psychopaths appears to work differently. They require far more intense stimulation to feel satisfaction, where you find pleasure in a conversation, an achievement, a connection. The psychopath needs something more. More risk, more power, more control. It is a structural addiction to intensity. In 2005, neuroscientist James Fallon discovered something that shook the academic world. While analyzing brain scans of psychopathic inmates for a research project, he noticed that one of the most abnormal scans belonged to him. The man studying psychopaths had the brain of one, but Fallon never committed any crimes. Why? He attributes it to his environment, a warm, stable childhood full of genuine human connection. Which leads us to the next question: is psychopathy genetic or shaped by experience? The answer is both, and that combination is what makes this topic so unsettling. Researchers at the Karolinska Institute identified genetic variants, like CDH13 and MAOA, linked to emotional insensitivity and impulsive behavior. These variants are heritable. Anyone could carry them. But those genes do not determine destiny. Twin studies show that even with identical genetic material, environment plays a decisive role in whether traits become destructive. A childhood of warmth, safety, and stable bonds can act as a brake. A childhood of abuse, neglect, and trauma can accelerate the expression of those traits to extreme levels. From a psychoanalytic perspective, Freud described psychopaths as lacking the internal mechanism for guilt, remorse, and shame. What regulates us morally? What makes us hesitate before hurting someone? They simply do not have it. And without guilt, the pleasure of transgression functions like a drug. Every successful manipulation, every lie that works, every person controlled produces a dopamine release. The psychopath does not transgress in spite of consequences. They transgress because that is what gives them pleasure. What is most frightening about the psychopath is not the violence. It is the perfection of the mask. Research consistently shows that psychopaths tend to be highly intelligent, observant, socially fluent. They have learned to map their behavior like actors, studying what people want to see, what they want to hear, what makes them trust. Ted Bundy was charismatic. Patrick Bateman, the fictional character from American Psycho, was impeccable. Dark psychology uses these profiles as mirrors because they expose something we don't want to admit. We are vulnerable to charm. We are wired to trust whoever appears sincere. The psychopath exploits exactly that vulnerability. Inside a relationship, they identify your weaknesses with surgical precision. They use what you love against you. They create emotional dependency before you realize what is happening. And when you finally see it, when the mask slips for a moment, they have already constructed a version of reality where you are the irrational one. Because the psychopath doesn't just lie, they build parallel worlds. A study from the University of Montreal found that psychopathic criminals do not respond to punishment the same way other criminals do. When presented with risk scenarios, their brains simply do not process negative signals with the same intensity. They see only the gain. Punishment is not real to them the way it is to you. They live in a world where only pleasure has weight. So what do we do with all of this? First, it is important to say psychopathy exists on a spectrum. It is not a switch that turns on or off. Psychopathic traits exist in degrees, and science still debates where the disorder ends and where cold rationality as adaptation begins. But there is something deeper here. Studying the psychopathic mind leads us to a philosophical question that humanity has been avoiding for centuries. What is moral consciousness? Is it innate or is it built? If someone is born without the capacity to feel guilt, are they morally responsible for their actions? Neuroscience says their brain is structurally different. Philosophy asks, does that absolve them? Law debates, can they be held to the same standard of punishment? There is no easy answer. Perhaps there is no answer at all. Only the vertigo of realizing that what we call humanity may, in some cases, be nothing more than chemistry working one way and not another. The psychopath does not live in a world of monsters and victims. They live in a world of pieces and players. And the most unsettling thing of all, they are looking at you right now and smiling. And you smile back. If this video made you think, if at any point you recognize someone you know, leave it in the comments. What was the most unsettling moment for you? In the next episode, we enter another dark territory, manipulation. What techniques are used by controlling minds, and how to recognize them before it is too late? Subscribe. Hit the bell. This channel is for those who are not afraid to look inward.